What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Central Virginia Sport Performance Podcast. As always, I am your host, Jay DeMayo, and today I am super fired up to get to catch up with Colorado College's Derek Savage. Derek, thanks for spending the time to be with us today, bro.
Of course, yeah. Thank you for having me on. It's a huge honor.
Yeah, man. Well, listen, we're going to get into the nuances and the uniqueness of the position in the school and all that, but let's give everybody just kind of like the quick elevator pitch here. Who is Derek and how did you get out to CC, man?
Yeah, absolutely. So director of strength and conditioning at Colorado College. This is my 7th year here on staff. And again, I've got kind of a unique background with it. I actually started out at CC as a volunteer, and I've slowly just worked my way into every position, kind of climbing the ladder one step at a time. Very fortunate. Things have just worked out for me. And again, like I said, now the director here. What initially brought me out here was actually grad school. Had graduated undergrad, had started my first position in the USHL working for the Chicago Steel, and fell in love with strength and conditioning, but really wanted to further my education. So applied to several different grad schools, and really upon seeing the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, I realized, it's got the Olympic Training Center, the NSCA headquarters, there's multiple colleges, military bases, really every avenue of strength and conditioning that you can think of resides in Colorado Springs. So for me, it kind of seemed like a no-brainer to move out here. And then, on top of that, it's beautiful in Colorado. I'm an outdoorsy guy. Packed up everything I could in my car, moved out here in 2017, ended up getting my master's in sports medicine with an emphasis in strength and conditioning, graduated in 2019. And I'll be honest, I think everybody talks about the importance of building a network and those connections. And I don't think I had done a great job of that. So whenever I graduated, was applying for all these jobs, just wasn't really getting where I wanted to go. I was working in the private sector at the time as an associate director, but I knew my passion was collegiate strength and conditioning. And I told myself, hey, I'm going to do anything I can to get into that realm. So I actually stepped down as associate director in the private facility just so I could volunteer at Colorado College. I reached out to Scott Caulfield, who was the director at the time, wonderful guy. He allowed me to come get a foot in the door. And like I said, one thing kind of led to the next, and things got good for me after that. And, been very fortunate and fell in love with Colorado since I've been here. So, yeah, happy to be here.
I think there's something to be said, selfishly, about a guy who's willing to show up for the kind of entry-level positions and then they stick around. And they're able to get, to, I don't know if I want to say it this way, but to the position they wanted all along, whether you knew you wanted that or not, is its own conversation. But I think that in our vocation, it's all too often that people, they don't even let their resume get dust on it, let alone need to dust it off. And they're already ready for the next job or the next place or the next thing that they can jump to because the grass is always greener somewhere else. But to be able to sit there and build something and work your way up is really unique in today's sort of coaching climate. So talk a little bit about that, coming in with, and also too, having two different directors, right? So you were there with Scotty and then you were there with Cam, two, superhumans, but completely different training and coaching methodologies and all that. So talk about your steps, kind of walking through the ranks and where your two directors prior kind of fit in with that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So first off, had a lot of people tell me I was crazy, taking a huge pay cut to go from assistant director at the private facility to just be a volunteer. Had a lot of people being like, hey, just stay in there, try to keep applying. And I was like, well, sometimes you have to do what it takes. And for me, it just made sense to make that move. Had known Scott kind of from the area, obviously high up in the NSCA at the time. So came in, got to know him a little bit. Obviously, if anybody's ever met Scott, they know he's a wonderful human being, just like the nicest guy in the world to get along with. So the fact that he let me on, and then the assistant strength coach at the time was actually someone who I'd gone to grad school with. So knew the staff pretty well. And I felt like our personalities meshed. And they kind of showed me the ins and outs of the school. Colorado College is a very unique college. So first, I want to say, one, we're multi-divisional. So we have 2 Division I teams, 15 Division III teams, and that just inherently kind of brings on its own challenges. But then two, kind of a big thing that people may not know is CC is on the block plan. So instead of having normal semesters, all of our students are only allowed to take one class at a time. They take that class every single day. Every class is in session from 9 to noon. If there's a lab for that class, that lab is from 1 to 3. And they take that for every day for 3.5 weeks. And then on that fourth week, they take finals and then move on to the next class. So our students take finals 8 times a year. And again, that can create its own stress, kind of crazy. But then
What?
yeah, isn't it wild? Yeah, I
That's
want to say there's 3
bonkers.
colleges in the United States who do this. It is bonkers. Students either love it or hate it. I mean, you're only focusing on one thing at a time. However, you're drinking from a fire hose. I mean, I remember taking OChem 2 in college, trying to condense that down into 3.5 weeks. Sounds impossible. But CC is a really high academic school. So because of that, athletics actually isn't allowed to schedule anything from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. So like, again, inherently brings on its own challenges. We're now very limited in the hours in the day that we're able to operate. So again, just uniqueness within Colorado College, but that uniqueness and then the fact that like there was such strong communication and collaboration between the staff, I just fell in love with it immediately. And it helped that CC was willing to take care of me. So like I said, I started out as a volunteer. About 6 months later, I started getting paid as a part-time guy. And then just as I thought things were going really well and the school had approved another full-time position, and Scott had told me, hey, you've earned this job. It's pretty much yours. Well, Scott took a different job and went to Norwich University. So I start freaking out a little bit. I'm like, oh no, I've done everything I can up to this point, but it's going to be a new director. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. But, again, we've persevered this far. Let's stick through it. Let's see what happens. They hire this Penn State guy, and they tell him, hey, you can kind of bring on whoever you want. And I'm like, oof, all right, it was good while it lasted, but I'm probably going to have to move on. Like, this guy's going to hire somebody else. But fortunately enough, Cam Davidson was the guy who got hired. He called me. He interviewed me. I guess he liked enough what he heard. So he decided to give me a shot and hired me full time. And just like, can't be grateful enough for Cam. Like, I've learned so much from him when it comes to programming, collaborating and conversating with sport coaches and the medical side of things, just kind of how to navigate yourself through the field. And I think for me at that time, like having that strong mentorship was probably the biggest thing that I needed. And just like he prepared me every step of the way. So being able to step into the assistant director role, and then ultimately whenever he left and took a job at NC State, like he told everybody, hey, Derek is your guy. He pushed me, to get into that position and had to go fight and earn it. But ultimately I owe a lot to Cam because he kind of set me up to be successful in this new position.
Yeah, that's pretty. First of all, the class schedule thing is bonkers. That's wild. Like, yeah. I'm still stuck on that, but I don't want to dive too deep into that because that could be just a spiral that I don't know if I want to go down. But I think that one thing that a lot of coaches, having been through it a couple times, can take great lesson from with that is the process that you went through and how you had to resell yourself to keep a job and stay on a staff,
Mm-hmm.
To be able to survive a director change, especially at a school where it's really like hockey and then like keep everything else above, and women's soccer, because those are the two Division I, right? And then everybody else, it's like you just basically have to keep them above water. So where, looking back on that process, do you A, feel you were successful, and B, would advise people in those situations to help put themselves in better positions to, if they want to keep the position they're in, to have a better chance at doing so?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably one of the biggest things is like utilize your resources and build relationships as you go. For me, it was easy because I had so many people advocating for me. I think I had just done a good job on the front end of like, I connected with the athletes, I generated buy-in, and like people may not know this, but at the Division III level, out of season, athletes don't have to show up to anything. It's unlike Division I or II. So like, you have to cultivate and create this environment where athletes understand like, hey, we're going to push you. We're going to ask a lot out of you. We want to win championships, but like ultimately at the end of the day, you have to want to be here. So like generating that can be very challenging. It's a fine line. But like, I think that's probably one of the biggest things is like, show people that you care, you're invested, you're going to do anything that it takes to be there. And then again, I'm huge on collaboration. So like, I don't think a strength coach is going to be as successful as they can be if you put yourself on an island. So for me, it was communicating and working harmoniously with our medical staff, with our sport coaches. It just made things easy. So when Cam did kind of come on, our associate AD was like, again, you can hire whoever you want. However, there's this guy, Derek Savage. If you don't hire him, there might be a mutiny on your hands. Like he's worked to this point to where people feel like he deserves it, but like you do what you need to do. It's your position. So I think that's probably my biggest bit of advice to people would be like foster those relationships, do everything that you can, and hopefully it pays off. You know, it doesn't always, but like I got very fortunate. I think I can be a good advocate for that. And then what was the second half of that question? I apologize.
No, and then what advice you would give to people that were in those positions? But I think you ticked that box. So I guess I'm just going to jump to the next one. Another one that I think that a lot of people overlook now is the power and the role and the power in the role of being mentored.
Yeah.
Having someone that you actually are trying to learn under, are trying to have them be critical of you and really push you to be better. You had two really good ones to start out. And, you know, knowing both of those guys, it isn't going to just simply be like a director assistant relationship. It's going to be like a mentor mentee, as in, I'm going to try to show you not just the steps, but the mistakes I made and how we can, you know, allow you to trip and fall, but not, you know, completely lose your teeth. So talk about some of that. How did that really help project you forward? And what are some things that, like, I mean, you were fortunate to be able to have the mentor come to you when you're looking at younger coaches, especially people looking at GAs and internship positions. What are some things that you found value in that you would recommend people looking into when it comes to finding a mentor that's going to help lead to greater things in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. I think having conversations is probably one of the biggest things. So again, for me, you know, I just reached out to Scott Caulfield over email. I think social media, you know, while it might have some of its negative side of things, can be very positive because there's a lot of really strong people out there now who aren't gatekeeping information. They're putting things out there. And I think it's easier now than ever to get connected with people. So just like shoot somebody a DM on Instagram, an email, or like go to these conferences and try to have genuine connections. And just be like, hey, like I'm in town. Could I swing by your facility? If you're not too busy, could I just like pick your brain for a second and kind of see what's going on? For us here, like if any teams travel to CC, like I really want to go meet the strength coach. Again, just build that network, but just kind of see how they do things and just like any similarities or differences. So I think my biggest bit of advice to anybody who's looking for mentorship is like, don't be scared to reach out. The worst people can say is no. And again, you can find other people. I think there's a lot of really, really solid people in the industry right now who want to help, who want to continue to build everything around them because that's how we only get better, you know, as a department, as a field, is we continue to help each other grow. And so, like again, it worked out well for me with Cam, with Scott Caulfield, and so I think my transition with those two was perfect. Like starting with Scott because he's such a laid back individual. Like he's brilliant and he has really strong people skills. So like me first coming into the collegiate realm, obviously a little bit nervous. You don't know what to expect. Like you had been a GA and an intern previously, but like this is full time. It's a little bit different. And so like early mistakes that I had made, like Scott was able to like kind of help me smooth it out. And it just like made my transition into full time collegiate strength and conditioning just really easy. And then Cam comes in, obviously much different personality, very blunt, very straightforward, but you know, that's what I needed at the time. It was very much a like, hey, let's get it into gear. Let's take it to the next notch and let's see what you're capable of. Like he's a trial by fire kind of guy, but I appreciate that about him. And I've taken, you know, what I think is positive from both of those gentlemen. And I'm trying to implement that now with my staff and like me being in the director role. Obviously I've come a long way from having strong mentors. So like I want to help be that person now. So like we've got a younger assistant strength coach now. I think he's assimilating super well, but there are still some nuances things, you know, that I want to help out and I want to help build him in his career. So yeah, I guess that's kind of two sides of the coin.
Nah, dude, but I love that. So as you make that pivot now from mentee to mentor, where do you see the biggest challenges? And then where do you see the biggest successes at this point?
Yeah, and I think in a little bit of a unique situation right now. So just because things changed so last minute, we are currently a little bit understaffed. So we've got two different weight rooms that we operate out of. Again, our two Division One teams predominantly out of one, and then our 15 Division Three out of another. And it's really two of us trying to navigate all of these moving parts. And again, kind of I mentioned the block plan. Because of that, we have a ton of overlap with teams. So it can be a little bit stressful with just two people. But again, I've been here for 7 years. I've been in every position. So in my mind, I think I know what it takes to be successful as an assistant strength coach. So I'm trying to help my guy Colin understand those things, and just like the nuances that pop up as we go, being short staffed. But like things have been phenomenal. Again, I think having the support and the collaboration of everybody at CC is really going a long way. I think being well organized is probably one of the biggest things, and shout out to my girlfriend for helping me out with that. But little the details, everything's in the details, and at the end of the day, you have to enjoy what you do. So I think if you kind of encompass all of these important things, you stay on task, like you can manage. I'll be honest, I think my biggest struggle right now is probably delegating. I've kind of been in that role as the assistant director for a while now. So I almost want to do the director and the assistant director role when I know I need to start handing certain things off. So that's one thing, introspectively that I need to kind of take a look at and reanalyze. If Colin is a very intelligent and capable human being. He can be successful with these things. And like our programs and our teams aren't going to see a productivity drop just because I'm not around. Again, like you said, just be that strong mentor to him, and everybody still gets what they need. So I think those are like we're being successful. Everything's great. Transition's been tough just because we're going through the school year short staffed. But again, yeah, delegating I need to work on, but we're getting there.
It's probably the hardest step, in my opinion, and
Mm-hmm.
because I suck at it. Like it's probably the hardest step, and it because it's so easy to just kind of be like, forget this, I got it, and it takes a lot of trust and really
Mm-hmm.
you believing in what you've taught someone. And I think that that's the tricky
Mm-hmm.
part as I've gotten much, much older and grayer is like identifying that it's not so much trusting the person as it is trusting you prepared the person.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I
And
think for
I
me,
think that you got two good dudes to help you see that.
yeah, no, absolutely. I think for me, it's just like, I'm very passionate. I care so much. And, like I've built a lot of this almost from the ground up. Came in when like a lot of these Division Three teams out of season had like 17% attendance. And then whenever I hand them off, they're at like 87% attendance on the off season. So it's just like you care. You've seen the programs grow. You've made all these connections with people. But again, you have to rely on the people that you're putting in those positions. You have to rely on the process that you set up along the way, and just like be there whenever things go awry. But I almost like another thing I struggle with. I think is like letting people fail. Like I think it's a valuable part of the process, and like I needed to go through it, and I know other people need to go through it as well. So like not doing too much for them on the front end, because eventually I am going to need to step away a little bit more, and like they've got to be prepared for that. And if I'm doing too much for them, they're not going to be ready for it. So, like you said, it's been a little bit of a learning curve, but super excited to be in the position and couldn't have learned more from the two guys before me. So, yeah, again, very grateful.
Yeah, I think that having the trust to be able to fall down and get yourself back up
Mm-hmm.
is really why I'm still here. Why I've been able to be here for almost a quarter of a century because I've been around a strength and conditioning directors that have let that happen and be a head
Mm-hmm.
coach or at times five that put up with me being a knucklehead and figuring it out a bit, and it's kind of a tricky little tug of war to do when you're the one overseeing it. Um, but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
trusting in the preparation you provided ends out being the true driver in that. But yeah, man, like pivoting kind of back to training. going from the Division 3 level to Division 1 highly successful ice hockey.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's not even like a pivot. It's like a teleportation.
Yeah.
So talk about that transition, and really kind of what you've picked from the two guys you've watched do it, and then where you made it your own.
Yeah,
So I think
absolutely.
that's the fun part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for me, like you said, like I think if you go from like 0 to 100, if I was just the Division 3 guy and then out of nowhere try to just go take over hockey, like I don't know if it would be as seamless of a transition. But for me, I made it a goal of mine, and I think Scott and Cam did a good job of allowing me to do so. Was be around and be as included as possible, and like soak up all of the knowledge and just like processes that they do along the way to help make that hockey team successful and the women's soccer team successful. So it was like it was a an matriculation, like over 3-4 years, like slowly building trust from the guys on the team, getting to know the sport coaches a little bit more. So whenever everybody, I'm going through the hiring process and I have to interview, and the hockey coaches are like, "Hey, you're probably going to be the guy." Well, now they know who I am. They kind of know how I operate. They've seen me coach. So I think doing little things along the way is going to be important for you to be successful. And then really, like you said, it is a whole other step, a whole nother level. So like I just think attention to detail is vastly important. And again, communication is going to be my best friend. So Chris Mayotte, our head coach, I go to him day one and I'm like, "Hey, this is your program, this is your team. Help me facilitate that. Like you recruited these guys. What do you think is going to help you be most successful? And I'm going to tailor things that specific way so I know we're on the same page." At CC, we incorporate what we call triangle meetings. So every single week for preseason and in season, we sit down and it's the sport coaches, the strength coach, and the medical personnel for that team, and we hash out everything. What do injuries look like? Is there a common injury across the board? If so, how do we mitigate that? Obviously, again, we're in blocks. So which blocks are the guys in? Are they challenging? What do stressors look like? And then I ask coach, like, "Hey, we play Friday, Saturday. We're off Sunday. What does practice Monday through Thursday look like? How many days are we going? Intensity, duration, volume. What does that look like?" And then I'm going to mirror that. I don't know if you know who Daniel Bove is, but for the Pelicans in the NBA, I think he's done a brilliant thing with the quadrant system and just consolidating stress. So I've kind of taken a page out of his book, and I program very similarly. So if Monday's moderate, Tuesday's high intensity, Wednesday's low on the ice, well, I'm doing the same exact things on the same days in the weight room. So high days stay high, low days stay low. And I know Cam a couple of weeks ago on your podcast had mentioned high challenge, high support. Well, that's exactly what that is. Like it might be really tough days. Like we're going to ask a lot of these guys, that's the high challenge, but we're there for them. We're going to do all the right things. We're testing sports science to make sure, hey, like that needs to hold me accountable. Am I doing the right things? Do we see the right adaptations? KPIs are hitting the right things at the right time of year. Well, that's high support to me. Like we're going to be there for the guys, and competition readiness is always, of utmost importance. So, hopefully this weekend when Omaha comes here, like we get 2 wins in the conference column. And so it's just little things like that. But again, I think big thing for me, attention to detail, communication, collaboration. Those are probably my 3 biggest things.
Yeah, I dig that. So then now when you go into those meetings, right, as the newer guy, walk me through that, because I think that that's something too that a lot of people, when they get into new positions, they kind of get a little aggressive because they want to make sure that what's theirs is theirs in a sense, if that makes, you know what I'm saying? So talk us through a little bit of that.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say first off, I think our triangle meetings at CC work so well because we all trust each other, because nobody in the room really has an ego of like, "Hey, I know better than you. This is my lane, stay your lane," anything like that. Like, again, being to work harmoniously with each other, I think is going to be massively important. Nobody's gatekeeping information. And I think there's a fine line. You need to be able to deliver information with conviction, but like it needs to be done with tact, with diplomacy, and like be able to have a conversation. Like I know the physiology, I know the sports science, but Mayo knows hockey better than I do. So at the end of the day, I'm also just like his support staff. It is his program. He is the captain of the ship. So like I'm going to provide him with all of the information that I think is going to help us be successful. But at the end of the day, it's his information to do with what he sees fit. So he'll give some pushback every now and then, and like we have a conversation about it. Like I'm definitely not going to get upset that he doesn't necessarily agree with me. So like, first week of having the conversation, I had done force plate testing. I looked at on ice numbers because we use first beat, similar to Catapult. And I'm like, hey, we have our first games coming up this weekend. I think Monday should be here, Tuesday here, Wednesday here, so on and so forth. And he's like, Wednesday is our big, like we go over the scouting report and then we start to implement more things based on who we're playing. So I can't have Wednesday be that low. And I'm like, okay, all right, well, here's a pivot. Here's maybe other suggestions. He's like, all right, that sounds good. So it's a little bit of back and forth. And again, just being open minded, being able to have a conversation. But like, again, you need to come into those meetings very ready, very detail driven, like everything you need to be on. And if you're not, like he's going to pick that apart. So I think for me, again, jumping from D3 to D1, and like, I think my advice to anybody else out there who's trying to do so, like you're capable of doing it. You have all the strengths. You just really have to be on. You can't take a single day to just like sit in the autopilot seat and just hope like, oh, what I've done so far can get me there. No, like this is a revenue generating sport. We have 13 guys who are going to play in the NHL. Like there's a lot riding on this. So like you have to do your due diligence with this team or they'll find somebody else who will.
Yeah, dude. I think that is like the last part, especially like you have to do your due diligence. And I think that comes down to a whole bunch of things, right? Like you understanding
Mm-hmm.
what the role and the needs of the staff and or the players or both, if they're not the same, if they're independent of each other, and
Mm-hmm.
then understanding really like what you were talking about, like these metrics aren't a deity. I think that all too often we get caught up in volume, intensity, density of what practice is when really what's hard is like, yeah, man, like two of your three right wingers might have had a rough day, but the third guy brings it down. And it's like, well, how does that change for the other two? Like, what did we program right, wrong, or indifferent? Like, we're looking at a lot of averages. And my good buddy Kier Wenham Flat's got a great saying about averages that people can go look up.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that a lot of that is challenging, especially the big thing that I messed up on early was like a lack of definition of terms and like definition of
Yeah.
terms and what's important to the coaching staff. And it's that's something that these conversations seem to take care of.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And like you're saying, kind of piggyback off that, like I know Chris Mayotte loves details. Okay, well, what are his details? Like you're saying, what is important to him? What does he think is going to make us successful? And anything that he's kind of pushing forward in terms of verbiage, culture, work ethic, really anything, like I want to mirror, I want to be a part of his staff. So I want to make sure that we're on the same page. There's no broken link in that chain. So again, I do think it's important. And I was the only new guy stepping into that room. So like I've got six other people who I can go pick their brains. Our physical therapist I think is brilliant. He could be anywhere working right now, like phenomenal guy, one of my closest friends. So I go to him and I'm saying, hey, you've been on the staff for 3 years now. You know what it takes to be successful as the strength coach. Give me some tips, give me some pointers. What is Coach Mayotte looking for? And I want to deliver on that. So again, I don't think too much hubris coming in is going to be a good thing. Like be able to have that humility, being able to kind of rely on maybe some resources around you, and then doing your research is going to be huge.
Yeah, no, 100%, Derek. Dude, that's a ton of gold in all this, man. When we're looking at people trying to climb the ladder and build their way through things, and really trying to progress in a vocation where there aren't standards. You know what I mean? Like, and each person's spot is going to be unique, what they're looked at and they're asked to look after. And I'm really grateful for you being so candid with all this today, man. This is a killer 30 minutes. But before we get out of here, just like I'm asking everybody right now, Cam threw your name in the hat. Who does Derek Savage want to hear next on the podcast?
Uh, yeah, that's a great question. I think Lily Griffith would be another phenomenal one. She's climbing the ladder quickly, brilliant mind, does a great job putting things on social media, is elevating programs left and right. She's at FAU right now, just doing wonderful things, working with women's basketball, women's soccer, and I want to say beach volleyball. So again, wonderful things. Um, Outside of that, I'm not too sure. So I'm just going to put Lily's name out there in the hat, and I think she'd be a great person to bring on.
Lily
Right.
Griffith.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. FAU. Yeah.
All right, man. She's do me a favor, send me her ad on Instagram, Lily. You're gonna be tagged in a post real soon. We're looking forward to chatting, seeing if we can get you on the show here. But Derek, man, this is dope. I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for your time, buddy, and we will be in touch
Of course.
really,
Absolutely.
really soon, bro.
Yeah. Again, Jay, appreciate it so much. Huge honor to be on here. So thank you.
Yeah, man. Well, cheers, brother. We'll be in touch. Thank you so much.